Imagine for a second that you're trapped inside a fortress
Okay.
and you built it yourself. The walls are just, impossibly thick, the doors are locked, and absolutely nothing unpredictable can ever get inside.
Sounds pretty safe.
Right, you are perfectly safe. But
Hmm.
there is a catch. You can never, ever leave.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And suddenly you realize that this fortress designed to protect you is actually just a really elaborate prison.
Huh? That is a terrifying thought.
It is, and today we are taking you on a deep dive into the actual architecture of that mental prison. We're going to look at the exact mechanisms of human anxiety, how we build these psychological walls, and, well, most importantly, what happens when those walls are forcibly torn down.
And to do that, we are examining this truly fascinating intersection of art and clinical psychology.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
We're drawing from a really comprehensive academic paper that applies rigorous psychoanalytic theory to a film from 2003.
Matchstick Men.
Exactly. Directed by Ridley Scott. And if you haven't seen it, Nicolas Cage plays this guy, Roy Waller.
Classic Nick Cage performance, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. He's grappling with this devastating cocktail of severe obsessive-compulsive disorder, agoraphobia, and antisocial personality disorder.
Okay, let's unpack this starting right at the foundation, because we are essentially looking at a cinematic mirror for how the unconscious mind defends itself.
Right.
And to understand a mind that is constantly on the defensive, we really have to look at Roy's sanctuary, which is his remarkably sterile house.
Yes.
The opening scene kind of establishes his psychological baseline, and honestly, it is incredibly intense to watch.
It really is. And the academic source highlights this sequence because it's a textbook visualization of classical Freudian defense mechanisms.
Right, going back to Freud.
Yeah, Freud mapped the psyche into three parts. You have the I-id, which drives our primal, chaotic impulses.
Like raw emotion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then the superego, which is our punishing, hypermoral inner critic. And finally, the ego, the conscious self that's just desperately trying to negotiate between the two.
So we see Roy standing in his pristine living room, and he spots this like microscopic speck of dust. He bends down, sweeps it up, and makes this very distinct, almost involuntary sound of relief.
Yeah, that sound is crucial.
And then he goes to his front door. He opens and closes it 3 times, counting out loud, but he does it in Spanish.
Uno, dos, tres.
Right, uno, dos, tres. Then he moves to the window, he checks the lock 3 times, and counts in Japanese. Ichi ni san.
It's just exhausting to watch.
It really is. But here's where I get tripped up. I mean, I understand counting as an OCD compulsion, right? But why the foreign languages?
That is a great question.
Like, why not just count 1, 2, 3 in English?
Well, that specific detail is actually the key to understanding the mechanism of his defense.
Okay.
From a psychoanalytic perspective, the dust is not just physical dirt.
What is it then?
It represents the uncontrollable chaos of his internal anxiety. The ego is terrified of that chaos. So by forcing his brain to translate numbers into Spanish and Japanese, Roy is actively mechanicalizing the ritual.
Oh, I see. He's making his brain work harder.
Exactly. He is forcing his cognitive language centers to work in overdrive, which completely distracts him from feeling the visceral, terrifying emotion that's actually driving the compulsion.
That is why.
It's a defense mechanism called isolation of affect. He's separating the physical action from the emotional terror.
I love that explanation. It makes me think of someone trying to hold back a raging river of anxiety by building a massive, intricate dam.
A dam, yeah.
But they're building it out of toothpicks.
Right.
The toothpicks are the counting, the cleaning, Spanish, the Japanese. The sheer effort required to maintain that dam leaves literally no room to process all the water building up behind it.
That's a perfect analogy. And we see the immense pressure of that river in how tyrannical his superego has become.
Oh, the inner critic.
Yeah. The source points to this therapy scene later on, where Roy confesses that the psychic pain is so agonizing he wants to blow his brains out just to make it stop.
It's heartbreaking.
But he halts himself, and his reason isn't some normal survival instinct.
What does he say?
He literally says he doesn't do it because he's worried about, quote, what happens to my carpet.
Wow. That is just utterly staggering. I mean, his compulsion to maintain a sterile environment completely overrides his basic biological drive to live.
Because the superego demands absolute external perfection to offset that internal chaos.
Right.
To Roy's mind, a blood-stained carpet is literally a worse fate than death.
Because the stain represents a permanent loss of control.
Precisely. Death is preferable to a mess.
Wait, I have a major structural problem with this character's life then.
Oh, what's that?
If this guy is so paralyzed by anxiety that a speck of dust is a 5-alarm fire, how is he simultaneously operating as a highly successful, ruthless con artist?
That is the million-dollar question.
I mean, he steals money from people for a living. That requires immense social agility and risk. Those two realities just do not seem to fit inside the same brain.
Well, you've hit on the central paradox of his character right there. And it brings us to Donald Winnicott's theory of the false self.
Okay, walk me through that.
The academic paper explains that Roy's slick, manipulative, con man persona is not his actual identity.
It's fake.
It's entirely fabricated armor. A con, by its very nature, is a heavily scripted interaction.
Right, he writes the script.
He writes the script, he anticipates the mark's reactions, and he completely controls the environment.
So the con artist isn't some daredevil taking crazy risks. The con artist is actually the ultimate control freak.
Exactly. The false self only functions in environments where Roy holds absolute power.
Wow.
It's just an extension of his compulsive need for control, but applied to social interactions instead of his living room carpet.
But I mean, armor only works if it doesn't have any cracks.
Very true.
And there's this brilliant scene where the script flips on him completely. Roy and his partner, Frank, are in the middle of conning this older couple inside their home.
Yeah, the living room scene.
Right. And Roy is completely in the zone. His false self is operating flawlessly.
Firing on all cylinders.
Exactly. And then the woman just casually opens a window to let her dog out into the yard.
Such a small thing.
Just a window. But sunlight hits Roy's face. He hears a dog barking, a lawnmower, the wind.
The outside world.
And you literally watch his entire operating system crash.
Mm-hmm.
His eye twitches. He starts hyperventilating, and they have to just abort the con and run.
It's a total meltdown.
He's panicking in the car, yelling, "I was losing my mind."
And he is not speaking metaphorically there.
He means it literally.
Yeah, the academic analysis points out that the ego's filter fundamentally failed in that moment.
Because he couldn't control the lawnmower.
Right. Roy survives by curating a sterile, highly predictable domain. That open window wasn't just a breeze.
It was an intrusion.
It was an intrusion of the unpredictable outside world. It pierced his armor.
And all that water behind the dam rushed in.
Exactly. That raw, unfiltered anxiety from the id flooded his system, and the false self simply disintegrated under the pressure.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, though. The paper links this specific vulnerability to his diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder, or ASPD.
Yes, which is a key part of his profile.
But when I hear ASPD, I think of a psychopath. I think of someone who is ice cold, calculates everything, and literally cannot feel fear or empathy.
That's the standard assumption, yeah.
Chloe is a ball of terror.
What's fascinating here is that the source text identifies this as a major clinical paradox that actually offers a glimmer of hope.
Hope? How so?
In severe, untreatable cases of psychopathy, you usually see a complete lack of anxiety.
Because they don't care.
Right, they don't feel nervous because they lack an internal moral compass. There is no superego punishing them. But Roy's intense, crippling anxiety proves the exact opposite.
Wait, so his panic is actually proof of his humanity?
In clinical terms, yes. It proves he has the capacity for what psychoanalysts call object relations.
Which means what, exactly?
It's the ability to form deep, internalized emotional bonds with others. If you were a true, hollow psychopath, the open window wouldn't bother him.
He'd just adapt and keep conning.
Exactly. The fact that he is so incredibly anxious means he has a profound inner world. His humanity isn't missing.
It's just buried.
Buried under a mountain of compulsive rituals designed to protect it.
So the fact that he feels pain means he can be treated?
Yes.
But this psychological scaffolding he's built, the counting, the false self, the sterile house, it's incredibly fragile.
It's basically made of glass.
Let's look at the mechanics of what happens when that toothpick dam finally breaks from the inside.
Okay, so we can understand this internal collapse through Heinz Kohut's theory of self-psychology.
Self-psychology.
Yeah. The paper explains that individuals with a severely fragmented sense of self often rely on external things to hold their identity together.
Like props.
Kohut calls these external regulators self-objects.
Let me make sure I'm grasping the mechanism here. A self-object isn't just something you like, right?
No, it's deeper than that.
It's almost like a piece of your own mind that you've parked outside of your body.
That is an excellent way to visualize it. A self-object performs the soothing, regulating functions that a healthy psyche would normally do for itself.
So what are really self-objects?
For Roy, His self-objects are his specific psychiatric pills and his very specific doctor. They are the external anchors keeping his fragmented self tethered to reality.
Which makes the bathroom scene absolutely terrifying to watch.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
Roy accidentally drops his pills down the sink drain. He frantically calls his doctor for a refill, only to find out the doctor has moved away without telling him.
The worst timing.
So in a matter of seconds, his physical anchor and his interpersonal anchor are just gone.
In Kohut's framework, this isn't just a major inconvenience. It is the massive narcissistic injury.
A narcissistic injury.
Yes, when those self-objects vanish, Roy's very identity begins to dissolve. We see him spiral into a frantic, manic cleaning spree. He's completely ignoring his partner Frank, who is literally pounding on the front door.
Because he's desperately trying to substitute the lost chemical control with environmental control.
Exactly. He's trying to hold the pieces together.
It reminds me of an astronaut on a spacewalk.
Oh, I like that.
You're floating out there in the dark, relying entirely on this thin tether connecting you to the ship.
Yeah.
If that tether snaps, you don't just fall, you drift into the infinite void.
That's exactly how it feels to the psyche.
And for you listening right now, this is a very real human phenomenon. How often do you rely on a self-object to hold your day together?
We all do it to some extent.
Maybe it's a rigid morning routine or, a job title that gives you authority or even the constant text messages from a specific person.
Right.
When you suddenly lose that external thing, you don't just feel sad, you feel disoriented, like a part of who you actually are is suddenly missing.
That disorientation is the subjective experience of a fragmented self. And the film escalates this beautifully.
With Frank at the door.
Yes. Frank finally barges in to check on Roy. But Frank is wearing his dirty street shoes on Roy's obsessively clean carpet.
Oh, man. And Roy literally drops to his knees in physical agony.
It's visceral.
Okay, we've all had that moment of being annoyed when someone tracks mud into the house. But falling to your knees, screaming, break down the psychology of that reaction.
Well, through the psychoanalytic lens, Roy's house is not just a physical structure.
What is it?
It is the last remaining boundary of his self.
Oh, wow.
When Frank walks in with dirty shoes, Roy doesn't experience it as a mess on the floor. He experiences it as a literal physical violation of his own psychological body.
So the house is his skin.
Yes. His self-objects are gone, his psychic skin is stripped away, and now the contamination has breached the inner sanctum.
So it's total psychological collapse.
Absolute collapse.
So if the pills fail and the routines fail and the false self of the con artist fails, what is the actual antidote?
How does he fix it?
Yeah, how does a mind that broken put itself back together? The paper argues the turning point is the arrival of a teenage girl named Angela.
Who Roy discovers is his daughter.
Right. This introduces a radical new element into his isolated world.
It really does.
Up until now, we've seen Roy's extreme germophobia, but we have to look at his mechanical reaction to Angela.
Because it's so different.
It is entirely contradictory to everything we know about him.
Yeah.
I mean, she is a walking nightmare for an OCD agoraphobe. She eats a greasy burger and gets ketchup all over her face.
Yep.
She grabs his unwashed hand and kisses it. She sleeps on his pristine, expensive couch with her dirty shoes on.
So she's on the couch.
By all the rules the movie has established, Roy's brain should just short circuit. But it doesn't.
The academic analysis explains this anomaly using Kohut's concept of mirroring.
Mirroring?
Yeah. Angela's presence provides a completely different kind of psychological anchor. She needs Roy as a father, and that genuine need stabilizes him.
It grounds him.
Exactly. Furthermore, she mirrors him with acceptance, not judgment. At one point, she looks at him and tells him, "I don't think you're a bad guy."
Which is the exact opposite of his superego.
Precisely.
His inner critic tells him he is a monster who deserves to die for staining a carpet. But she tells him he is worthy of love.
And that profound acceptance creates what Winnicott calls a play space.
Oh, like the spaghetti scene.
Yes, exactly. There is a scene where they are making spaghetti together. It's chaotic. They are throwing wet pasta at the refrigerator to see if it sticks.
Making a total mess.
And they are laughing. Analytically, a play space is a psychological zone where the harsh, punitive demands of the superego are temporarily suspended.
Because play requires giving up control.
Right.
Which is his biggest fear.
Right. But he can give up control because the relational connection is providing the safety that his obsessive rituals used to provide.
Wow.
He doesn't need the toothpick dam anymore because the river of anxiety has been calmed by genuine human attachment.
The shift is so profound it actually alters his unconscious habits.
It does.
There is a tiny detail the paper points out that completely blew my mind.
Which one?
Later in the film, Roy brings Frank over to meet Angela. Roy is so eager to introduce his partner to his daughter that he just bursts through his front door.
He doesn't count.
He completely forgets to count. No uno, dos, tres. He doesn't check the window. He doesn't even take his own shoes off.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it demonstrates a massive psychoanalytic evolution.
How so?
Roy's ego priorities have fundamentally shifted. For his entire life, his #1 priority was self-preservation through isolation and compulsive ritual.
Right.
But now, his priority is relational attachment. It's a powerful argument that severe neuroses like his OCD aren't just immutable biological glitches.
They're contextual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are inextricably tied to our relational context, to how safe we feel and who we feel safe with.
The daughter literally overwrites the pathology.
Yeah.
But a new relationship can't just magically erase a lifetime of delusion, right? At some point, the false self of the con artist has to collide with the true self of the father.
It's inevitable.
And that brings us to the climax, where confronting the lies becomes absolutely unavoidable.
Right, because Roy makes the catastrophic error of allowing Angela to participate in a con.
A terrible idea.
Predictably, it goes wrong, and Angela is placed in severe physical danger.
Yeah.
In the heat of the moment, Roy aggressively pushes her away and tells her to leave. On the surface, it looks like a regression.
Right. A viewer might think, oh, the stress triggered his germophobia. He can't handle people touching him again.
But the paper argues the exact opposite. For the very first time in his life, Roy rejects closeness, not to protect his own fragile ego from contamination, but out of genuine self-sacrificing love.
He's being a dad.
Yes, he is pushing her away to protect her from the toxic reality of his own life.
And the fallout of this leads to an explosive confrontation with his therapist.
This scene is incredible.
Roy goes in, completely desperate, looking for a medical fix, and the doctor drops an absolute bombshell. He tells Roy that there is no biological disease. His entire pathology is just a series of elaborate psychological defense mechanisms.
This is a critical moment. Roy's identity as a sick man was actually a shield that absolved him of moral responsibility.
Right, I can't help it, I'm sick.
Stripped of that shield, he feels incredibly exposed. So he immediately tries to resurrect his false self.
By rationalizing his crimes to the doctor.
Exactly. He insists he isn't a thief, he is a flim-flam man.
Such a specific phrase.
He argues that people hand him their money willingly because they're greedy, so they basically deserve it.
He's using semantics to avoid the crushing guilt. A thief is a bad father. A flim-flam man is just a guy playing a game.
It is a desperate narcissistic defense. He is trying to inflate his ego to protect against the pain of the doctor's assessment.
But then the doctor simply mentions Angela's name.
And the dam absolutely shatters.
You see Nicolas Cage just completely deflate. All the slick rationalizations vanish. He starts sobbing, and he admits the darkest, most painful truth. He used his daughter, he dragged her into his mess, and he ruined everything.
The academic text identifies this as the moment of profound structural insight.
Why is that?
The narcissistic defenses are gone, replaced by genuine emotional maturity and accountability. He is finally feeling the immense guilt, the sorrow, and the empathy that his Spanish counting and his pristine carpets were designed to repress.
So, what does this all mean for the mechanics of healing? Looking at the psychoanalytic framework here is a total catastrophic breakdown fundamentally required to achieve this level of self-awareness.
This raises a really important question about how change actually happens in the human mind.
Right.
According to the theories presented in the text, when defenses are as rigidly entrenched as Roy's, incremental change is nearly impossible.
The armor is too thick.
The false self is incredibly resilient. Often it requires a crisis, a moment where the defenses utterly fail to protect the individual from deep relational pain to force a structural reset. The false self basically has to be completely dismantled to make room for the true self to finally emerge.
The breakdown is the breakthrough.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the aftermath, set 1 year later in the film. Roy is no longer running cons.
He has a completely different life.
He's working a remarkably mundane job as a salesman at a carpet store. And visually, he is a different person. No tics, no frantic sweeping, no counting.
He's married, and his wife is expecting a baby.
The environment he once obsessively controlled to avoid anxiety carpets is now just a normal, everyday job.
There's some poetic justice there.
For sure. But the true test of this newfound stability happens when Angela unexpectedly walks into the store.
Without spoiling the intricate plot mechanics for anyone who hasn't watched the film, it turns out Angela was actually part of a massive, devastating con that was played on Roy.
Yeah, she cost him almost everything.
She did, and she
Yeah.
comes to the carpet store carrying this immense guilt, trying to apologize.
And Roy's reaction defies everything we knew about his character in the first act.
Completely.
He doesn't play the victim. He doesn't lash out in anger. He looks at her, and he consciously reframes the narrative of his own trauma.
It's a beautiful moment.
He smiles and says, "You didn't take the money, I gave it to you."
The paper isolates this single line of dialogue as the ultimate proof of a healed psyche.
Walk me through the mechanics of that. Why does that specific sentence prove he is healed?
Because he is reclaiming his own agency without resorting to delusion.
Oh, I see.
His self-worth is no longer tied to external self-objects or some false sense of superiority. He doesn't need to play the victim to protect a fragile ego, and he doesn't need to retreat into counting or deceit to handle the pain of betrayal.
He can just face it.
Yes, he can face the reality that he was hurt, forgive the person who hurt him, and maintain a genuine emotional connection. He is finally secure in his own identity.
It is a truly remarkable evolution. And as we close out this deep dive, it really forces you to look inward.
Oh, absolutely.
We all have our own defense mechanisms. You listening might not be locking a window 3 times while counting in Japanese, but the mechanics are identical.
The toothpick dams.
Right. Maybe you scroll on your phone for 3 hours every night to completely numb out the anxiety of a failing relationship.
Or maybe you've spent years building a false self at your job.
Oh, totally. A persona that is incredibly competent, deeply cynical, and entirely untouchable, just so you never have to feel the vulnerability of actually caring about the work.
Right.
We all build these dams.
We do.
Yeah.
But as the psychoanalytic breakdown of Matchstick Men illustrates, a fortress designed to keep anxiety out will eventually trap you inside.
Which leaves you with something I really want you to mull over today. If our deepest, most paralyzing anxieties are often just a smokescreen, a complex con, our own minds run to protect us from the terrifying vulnerability of true connection, what part of your own false self are you most afraid of dropping?
It's a hard question.
And more importantly, who might you finally be able to genuinely connect with if you did? Usually we think of a con as a trick you play on someone else, but maybe the greatest victory isn't pulling off the con. Maybe it's finally realizing you're the mark and deciding to step out of the game.